Greetings, greetings, greetings to you, my brothers and sisters, to those who are living on the Southwest Mexium, South American continent, near the Corporation of Guyana. That means my Moorish brothers and sisters, to those who are living in the Corporation of Guyana as Guyanese subjects and are melanated like me. Greetings to you all. This is Dr. Matthews-Bey coming to you live on the Southwestern Mexium on the Dr. Matthews-Bey Unfiltered. So before I start my evening show, I'm going to give you my 30 seconds that I normally do. And please hold on. Let me make sure that I get my 30 seconds available to you. And then we will start tonight's show. It's a heated topic. I was out for a week, but I'm back. It's a struggle, but I'm back. So let me give you my 30 seconds. Yes, so I'm happy that we're back. And I want to stretch on three topics tonight, three highlighted topics. One of them, it's the birth certificate controversy, along with the ID card in the Corporation of Guyana, and claiming to the lands of Guyana, which they have no authority over. I'm going to discuss on that. That's going to be the first topic. The second topic is my Mat D, my Moorish American travel documents and ID card, and I'm going to make sure that I spend the rest of the program telling you much about that, because that seems to be the controversy now, and the violation of my people's rights, now my Aboriginal Indigenous rights. So before I started tonight's show, this evening show, as a matter of fact, this is what some people are, the de facto government. Remember, all governments are de facto because they are a principal representative of a corporation. So their utmost stress about right now about Dr. Gavin Fitzgerald Matthews, or B, or Noble Gavin Fitzgerald Matthews B. This is the controversy. Take a good look, people. This is the controversy right now. This, my Moorish American travel document, the MATD. And this brings a more deeper controversy. I want to make sure that you're seeing it correctly. The government, the de facto administration, is having problems with it. So I can now identify my ancestral land. I'm no longer a subject of Guyana. I no longer belong to the Corporation of Guyana. I belong to the land in which is my ancestors. I belong to the land before 1821, before British came, British Guyana and British. I belong to the land before 1821, before 1726, before 1701. I belong to these lands. I didn't came here as a slave. My ancestors were never slaves. Get you? They didn't come here as slaves. They were already here. So we're going to discuss that, and we're going to discuss the violation of my ancestral lineage towards uh, Aboriginal indigenous people. We're going to discuss that. But before we get into that, let's go to the controversy of the birth situation in the Corporation of Guyana. Now, the de facto regime, the People's Progressive Terrorist Party, has started giving out ID cards to foreigners. The thing is that it's a ticklish problem, very ticklish. One of the main reasons that gives them that ticklish problem, that gives them that they're trying to set a ground. That ground is a predominant rule. You see, the de facto regime knows that they have no government reserve. They don't own lands. The British would have handed over to them what you call crown lands in the presence of independence in 1966. In handing over these crown lands, they now gotten to realize that these crown lands are what you call temporary loan to the Corporation of Guyana, the British Corporation of Guyana. That would have come into an effect in 1701 when the treaty was drafted and accepted in 1777, and made its way into the Congress in 1786. I'm talking about the United States of America Congress. And when I'm saying the United States of America Congress, I do not mean where the corporation, the US, is. I mean the entire North, South, and Central America. These United States of America, which is governed or being organized by what you call the OAS, because the name is being replaced now from the United States of America to the Organization of American States. Just switch it around. It's the same thing. Because they realize that the United States of America and a United States of America becomes a clash of controversy. So they changed the name, the United States of America, and put it under the body. It was a body anyhow, but they just changed the name. They move it from the United States of America to the Organization of American States. Remember last year, Joe Biden had an OAS summit. They call it Summit of the Americas. CEO, and listen to me, CEO, Central Executive Officers of the United States of America, or Organization of American States, which Guyana was part of it. But we can get back to that just now. We can get into details. So what the de facto regime is saying, that they need to change a directive in a constitution. And one of them is that if you have a majority, a complete majority, there are two different majorities the parliament speaks about, a majority and a complete majority, like a landslide. Now, if they get enough people to register the names on the voters list, which they deem as foreigners, they're foreigners anyhow. They're foreigners to the corporation and they're foreigners like how they are. to my land, which is America. This is what they're doing now. So they want to create a rigging process to make sure that even if they rig enough to take away the votes from the people, they're going to create a majority government, a complete majority government. And doing so now, they're going to say that the people now give up their rights to the land. We now have complete majority over the land. Because I'm going to show you a simple example. The land in Mocha came view that they took away from the residents of Mocha. Those land they now gazetted as abandonment, abandoned lands by you, the people that they forcefully moved from. But because you do not know your rights, you cannot take them to court. So we're going to get around where I come in now. And that's discussing the MATI and the identification with the proclamation documents to declare my indigenous rights as an Aboriginal indigenous. So what happened? This de facto administration is trying to have a complete majority, not only to take away, because they're going to say now that you, the people, give them the right by a complete majority to manage and to control their lands, which is my lands, not your lands, but they're using that as a precipice to take away your rights. And because you claiming they woke up, they realize that some of you woke up, some of you talk about ancestral lands, and they realize, oh shit, these people are getting close. But you got to get closer. Because here was the problem. They cannot claim lands because they don't have any rights to. Guyana is a corporation. It sits upon real estate that was loaned to them to do commerce. So they have no authority over it. There is something that you call prescriptive rights in the Constitution. And I spoke about that, I think about a week ago, where prescriptive rights give you the rights to the land that you live on without asking the government permission. You just need to take them to court, and the government can't claim ancestral lands because none of them are ancestral. The corporation is not ancestral. The corporation came here by a British. So they cannot win a case, no time at all, for prescriptive rights because they don't know how this land came about. As a matter of fact, those who sit on the Corporation of Guyana were brought here in 1845, so they can't claim on ancestral, because if you got to claim ancestral, it means the British was here before that. So you can't claim ancestral, so the government can't come and say, well, we got claims and this is our lands. No. For every land that they covet and they want to take it to do regularization, they have to publish it through the official gazette, hoping that no one contests their claim of abandonment that you abandoning. Because some of we don't like to read. We don't want to go in the papers and read to see where the official gazette is published, or we don't want to go to the National Library and see the latest, or the National Archive to see the latest published official gazette. We're being duped. Prescriptive rights gives you the right to challenge the government if you're living on a land for more than 12 years. Prescriptive rights give you the right to challenge the government if you're living on a land for more than 30 years, because the government has no reserve, none whatsoever. And those lands that NISIL holds and call prime real estate to create bonds for Guyana, it's also illegal, because those lands that they have there are still contested. They're ancestral lands, the entire South American continent, the entire Central and North America continent, the entire Americas are ancestral lands. Moors, Morocco, Moabites, that's the name. They were given different names because of different ancestral inhabitants. Not different ancestral, different what you call tribal names. Like Colombia. Colombia is a tribe. Yes. Like Atlantis. Atlantis was a tribe of people. Yes. The Moors, who were who were the government of all these tribes. Yes. They created the government of the United States of America because it is their tribe, their ancestors, given these indigenous names. That's why they shake when they hear Dr. Matthews-Bey is on the air. He's talking about these things that they don't want you to know. Please, they're begging me, please, Dr. Matthews, don't do this. But I have to do it because my people have to be edified. I don't care what they try to do to me. I'm here for purpose. This is my calling. Now that I found my righteous place as a noble, as an allodious person, my allodious persona. The judges and the presidents and all these people, they're afraid now because they realize that I have more authority than them. I not could only claim my ancestral rights, now I can stand and represent my people. I now become an Article 3 judge to create an Article 3 courts. To those who study the law system knows what I'm talking about. Because I am above the LLB or LLC, limited liability corporations, that comes under the judiciary. So I'm not privy to the acts, codes, conducts, and statutes of a constitution that is de facto, that belongs to a corporation. I can never be a corporation. I cannot accept the status as black and as African, as colored, because I am what you call a Bantu Moor. To those who were looking earlier to my previous shows, you'd realize I used the word Bantu or Aboriginal, indigenous person. Bantu Moor is more accessible to present day language, because when you say Bantu, people got a comprehension of what you're talking about. People of the lands of Kemet, which is now they call Africa. Like how some people on the social media say, why don't you go back to Africa? Well, hey, brother, you're living on Africa, but this is not Africa. If you get my point. Africa was named after a European general. As a matter of fact, I can't say European either. It was named after a Homo sapien who was a general that represents one of the countries who sits in the peninsula of Europe. He thought Africa was a plot of land and he gave it to his wife as a present and he named it Africa. That's how we end up with that name, Africa. It was not Africa. It was Kemeth. Kemethian language and teachings. It was Nubia. It was Egypt or Haisuk, not Egypt. Egypt is Greek. Haisuk was the name. Yes, that continent had all these names because then you had dynasties of pharaohs who ruled that continent and they named it after them, or like the kingdom of Kush. The entire continent, as a matter of fact. So we get mixed up with these verbal pronunciations of places and time, but we cannot be misled because we need to continue to speak the truth. I need to continue to speak that truth. That is why when you turn on to Dr. Matthews-Bey Unfiltered on this show, you get to realize that I speak the things thereof. I make sure that this information gathered would be given to you properly in its place. So let's go back. So they're issuing these ID cards because they want a majority control, a supermajority in parliament, which is what you call a landslide. So they want to try to do that in that way to organize. Remember now, they cannot claim lands. They got to say now the majority of the people living in the Corporation of Guyana before to hand their rights over to them so they can dictate the resources that's coming off of that land. They can't get a supermajority, but they're working a hocus pocus. The people who they're giving the ID cards to, the Spanish, they're not staying in Guyana. You want to see craziness? Turn up at the U.S. Embassy every morning. As soon as they got the Guyanese ID card and the Guyanese passport, they're turning up for visas because they realize that the Americans are not accepting them into the U.S. as nationals from Venezuela and Colombia. Places like Cuba. They're turning them back. So what are they doing? They know that they can get the Guyanese citizenship now, so they're gone. Boom. They're not staying. They are not staying here. So what is happening? The People's Progressive Terrorist Party realize that they cannot attain government at no time at all. They cannot win by elections. They don't have a voting constituency. Their own people run out of this country and they haven't returned. 20 years done gone. We got over 200 something thousand people left. The voters list is about 450,000 people. Let me tell you that one time. Of the Corporation of Guyana. So that's why they're handing out these ID cards. But here's the catch. The catch now is when they hand out these ID cards, they're allowing people to approach the Guyana Registrar Office to apply for what you call late birth certificates so they can be prominent registrars on the list of registrars as Guyanese and not as foreign nationals who's entitled to vote with an ID card. There again, they're working the hocus pocus now to say, well, Guyanese give up their rights to us to maintain, to develop, and to regularize their lands because they don't know how to do it. That is the way in which they're doing it. They're being advised by the IRI, the International Republican Institute. Remember, they were here all the time? They're still here. They're here advising the de facto administration on legal procedures to how to go to parliament and change certain laws to suit them. That's why they were talking about this gerrymandering of districts before local government. Now they're trying to do that through the Guyana Elections Commission. But the Guyana Elections Commission have to have a majority of all commissioners approving of that gerrymandering. So they want to change that now and just use four, the three PPP commissioners with the one, commissioner who's in charge of the entire six commissioners. Yes. That's what they want to do. So now you have to stay focused, because if you do not comprehend what's going on, hey bro, you ain't got nothing. You ain't got nothing left. So in so do, let us discuss now where I comes in. Now, as a Moorish American state citizen, not corporate citizen, state citizen, American state citizen on this my land of America. Remember the documents I showed you earlier? The book? I'm going to show you it back again. This is what is causing the controversy right now. This is what is causing the controversy. See what the book looks like? This is what is causing the controversy right now, because they know now, as a Moorish American, by international law of the UN Charter and Treaty, I can now defend my people. I can now defend them with the ID card also too. No problem. I have authority now over land, air, and sea. This is where the ticklish part comes in. So the de facto regime doesn't want me to teach my people, doesn't want me to edify you. So let's start from the United Nations perspective, right? So we can look at the United Nations Declaration on Rights of Indigenous People, right? Which I'm one of them, Aboriginal Indigenous people. And before I get into that, let me help you to comprehend who are they talking about. The United Nations are not talking about people who come to the lands, who has a date of entry. They're talking about the first people of their lands. So we can start from the people who you call the Amerindians. They have a date of entry. It is ground proof and evidence provided that they has crossed the Bering Straits. They were known as the Eskimos, to come to the Americas. So they have a date of entry. They're not the first people. Okay? Good. You can put them one side. The Homo sapiens, we call them the Europeans, but the real name is Homo sapiens. They are the animalistic people. Homo sapien means animal, the intelligent animal. They used to walk on their four legs, four paws, sorry. We taught them to walk upright and taught them how to comprehend and to be a part of a society. But they say civilization. Civilization means military occupation. Don't let me get myself fooled. Okay? Good. So we have a date of the Homo sapiens because they became settlers. They call them Caucasians because they used to live in the mountains of Caucasus. In the mountains of Caucasus. A place where nothing grows. They have to hunt animals to survive and eat. So we have an entry date for the Homo sapiens. We have an entry date for the Chinese. Remember? So we talk about the Amerindians, the Homo sapiens, the Chinese. Well, the Homo sapiens in the Corporation of Guyana, they say the Portuguese. All right. So now we have an entry date for the Indian indentured servitudes, which they came in 1845. I want to talk about them. People say, no, Dr. Matthews, you know, a lot of us are mixed up. We got Indian ancestral parents because we had into religious marriages. So what? I'm not here to defame them, but I'm here to teach the truth. Because remember, it is the all Indian PPP government that is claiming lands, that are handing out my lands to their friends and family, telling us that we don't have any authority over them. So I want to tell them now that they're foreigners on my land. According to the Geneva Convention, they are, and according to the treaty that they have signed, the Treaty of Peace, Love, and Friendship that they would have signed in 1778. Not the PPP, but the British. That the PPP took, that this de facto government is trying to claim. The Chatris, or however you want to call them, they came to my land in 1845. So on my land, they have no ancestral lineage. Their ancestral lineage is in India. The British name, which is now India, then it was Hindustan, they came from there. And even to them, they can't go there and claim ancestral lineage because the people who can claim ancestral lineage there are the Dravidians. Looks like me. Matter of fact, if you look at me, you might see Dravidians. Because my hair texture might only look like this, but it's a little bit soft. You know, if you see me straight up in person, you look at the texture of my hair, you might think that, you know, I came from the Madrasa side of Hindustan. But my lineage has traced back to the dynasty of Tahaka, the then dynasty that lived on the Nubian lands that controlled and ruled Haisut, which is now Egypt. The thing is that there's a complete violation now because someone has to stand up to the de facto regime. So I want to read resolution adopted by the General Assembly on the 13th of September 2007. And when I say resolution adopted, I mean resolution adopted. Okay? And this resolution is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And I'm going to go to sections 4. Hold on. I'm going to go to Article 4, sorry. Resolutions of the United Nations Charter of Indigenous Rights of the Indigenous People, Article 4 says, Indigenous people, in exercising their right to self-determination, that's what I did. We can go step by step. Self-determination. I determine that I am an Aboriginal Indigenous person. I have my identification, and I have my Moorish American travel document. It's called the Matthews-Bey. Okay, we can go on now. The right to self-determination, to determine who you must and will be at all times. Have the right to autonomy or self-government. That means I have the right to create my village, which is my family. Have the right to autonomy means over the land. That's why I am Allodious. Autonomy means Allodious people. Allodious people, yes. That's why I'm Allodious. Autonomy to self-govern in matters relating to my internal and local affairs. That means The corporation and the rules and the laws of the corporation, acts, codes, conduct, and statutes has no rights over me. That means the police force, the judicial system cannot infringe upon my rights. But that doesn't mean I would do things that are unlawful. That doesn't mean that I must go and take people's things and I behave like it. The police can't lock me up. Because when you do those things, now you put yourself right back into the corporation. The corporation will handle you because they're going to say you have right to self-autonomy and self-determination. That means to say that you cannot want the things of the corporation, but the corporation wants the things from me. That's why they owe me a due diligence. They owe me ancestral rights that was pertained in the treaty. They owe me royalty. So that's what they got to give to me. And I don't want the fiat currency, you know, them $5,000 bills and them US $100. No, I don't want that. I want the lawful currency, which is silver and gold, 99.9% purity. I don't want their corporate things because people kill themselves over it. And nobody from my group ain't gonna go over there and kill nobody for them things that ain't worth nothing. Okay? Good. Yes, as I was continuing, relation to their internal and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their own autonomous functions. That means when we create our own currency, you can't come and roll in and take it away from us because we have the right to defend ourselves. So now we can go to Article 25 and 26. Hold on. Well, I know it's me alone in the studio, so I just got to do everything. Hold on. We can stop at Article 20 because I need to infringe and I need to deliberate more on Article 20. Article 20 sections 1 says, indigenous people have the right to maintain and develop their political, economic, and social system or institutions. That is why when I raised this book, my social institution in which represents me, it's called the Moorish High Science Temple, in which this Mati, which is Moorish American travel document, is being given from. And to verify it, at the bottom of it says, Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, recordation, and there is something else that I cannot really talk about there. Okay? They gave me the right to comprehend where our rights are as Moorish Americans on the continent. And I may say continents, North, Central, and South America. And people may ask me, so if you're not a U.S. citizen, why the U.S. Department of Border and Protection and put this? I said, because the United States Corporation controls the Organization of American States, the OAS. So all states in the Americas come under their jurisprudence and their legal ways. You want me to tell you how they fall under them? Show you a simple example. The ex-Haitian president that was killed, he got 6% of the vote in the elections. The US went there and told the people that they have to install that particular president because the rest of presidents that the people wants unanimously, according to democratic laws, can't work because the US don't want to do business with them. Fast forward to Guyana in 2020. Mike Pompeo stood on the stage and said, the David Granger government that was duly elected by the people to be the representative for the people should give up the government and hand it over to the PPP. And there and then now they were installed against the will of the people. And it's the same US State Department is running around with them to tell the world that this is a recognized government. They tried to do that in Venezuela. But the Venezuelan government says, oh no. So you know what? The people face starvation because the Venezuelan government depend upon importing food to feed its own people than planting for the food of the soil in which they have. So that is to say, how important are they in recognizing, not only recognizing, I shouldn't say recognize, we recognize our own self. How is it important are they to inform all the governments of these states that the rights of the indigenous people must be respected at all times? They have a right to self-govern. They have a right to self-determination and a right to protect our own self by any means necessary. That means we can take up arms too. Yes, we have the right to do that, to defend ourselves from any intrusions. Okay, good. To be secure in the enjoyment of their own means of subsistence, and the development, and to engage freely in all their traditional and other economic activities. Section 2 of Article 20 says, indigenous peoples deprived of their means of subsistence and development are entitled to just and fair redress. That means nobody to interfere with them. No one government, doesn't matter who you want to talk about, has no authority to interfere in their livelihoods. None whatsoever. So we're going to go now to Articles 25 and 26, which is very important. Article 25 says, indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinctive spiritual relationship with their traditional owned and otherwise occupied in used lands, territories, waters, and coastal seas in other resources, and to uphold their responsibility for future generations in this regard. That means that we have the right to traditionally own our own, well, traditionally we own the land. We have the right to claim our ownership, to tell the world that we own this, and to show you that we own it, because the world wasn't there before us. We were there before, when I mean the world, the human beings, not the living souls like us. So we want, and when I mean human beings, I mean subjects of the corporations. And you could only be deemed as a human being if you're a corporate citizen. If you're not a corporate citizen and you're indigenous like me, you're then a living soul, because you cannot be classified as a human being. Human being is a classification of an intelligent animal. And then they have different grades of classifications. You have black, Negro, colored, white, Indian, Amerindian. Yes, Amerindians belongs to the system. Amerindians is a systematic name, it's a classification. It is a classification. And all these classifications are status. So in the law, statutes is what governs you as a citizen, as a US citizen, as a Canadian citizen, as a as a Mexican citizen, yes, as a British citizen, members of the European Union, all of those places, Chinese citizen, as long as they have that name attached to you, it's a classification. You're governed by statutes, acts, codes, conducts, and statutes because you're given a status. And just to affirm your status, your identification, your passports, your birth certificates, your ID cards, your driver's license, all of these things signifies and identify you as a citizen of corporations, commercial entities. So you now are a what you call an indentured servitude, servant, slave. I mean, it's hard to say it, but that's the fact. That's where the derivation of the word slave come from, the etymology from servant. But slave has categories, and those are the categories that I just named just now that they put you on the status, but they don't want to say the word slave. Maybe it's too indirect. If you get the point. Articles 26, it says indigenous people have the right to lands, territory, and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, and otherwise used or acquired. Well, we don't buy nor sell lands. So we acquired our lands through our foreparents, and which we call ancestral lands. So the Moors, remember your name after the lands. The Moors means land, land space. That's why they call us Moors, Aboriginal Indigenous Moors. Indigenous people have the right to own, use, develop, control the lands, territory, rights, and I'm talking about sections 2 in Article 26. Indigenous people have the right to own, use, develop, and control the lands, territory, and resources that they possess by reason of traditional ownership. That is why it's hard for you to say that your ancestors own some part of this land that I'm living on because they're dates of entries that when you came. Get my point now? Dates of entries when you came? Yes. So I know when you came. That means I was here first. When the Amerindians came, they met the Arawaks, the Dreads they used to call us. Well, throughout the centuries, our names has changed from time to time. Some of them used to call us the Anunnakis, big, huge, tall, dark-skinned people with dreads, 12 dreads, 12 locks. The 13th one behind the male, the main cord of the pineal gland. All these things. I mean, they keep these things away from us in history. As our story depreciates over the years because people start getting control of our knowledge of when things were before they even started to come and to be in existence. So we're going to continue talking. And resources that they possess in reason of traditional ownership and other traditional occupation or use, as well as those which they have otherwise acquired. States shall give legal recognition and protection to these lands, territory, and resources, such as recognition shall be conducted with due respect to the customs, tradition, and land tenure system of the indigenous people concerned. That is why on the Mat D, at the bottom here, this little fine line here, I'm going to read it back. It says, states shall give legal recognition and protection to these lands, territory, and resources. So the bottom of the Mat D says, here what it says, Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs and Border Protection gives me the right to enter any part of the Americas. So you got to seek out the most powerful state in the America, which is the US. You know, remember the US State Department that got Barrett in the left hand and Ali in the next in the right, and controlling them like puppets. This is US State Department. So what we did is to make sure we get the most powerful state in the land to recognize our existence according to Article 26, Sections 3. So we can go to now Article 37. Hold on. Me alone. Good. We're here. Article 37. Indigenous people have the right to the recognition, observance, and enforcement of treaties. Treaty of 1776, 1777, 1778, 1787, in which it was ratified, and which this treaty was drafted since 1701. Indigenous peoples have the right to recognize the observance and enforcement of the treaties, which treaties were entered into from the Moors of the Americas. And in our recognition and organization is known as the Moorish High Science Temple. We have entered that information is found in the U.S. Library of Congress. Yes, it is found in the U.S. Library of Congress. So, enforcement and treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements concluded with the states or their successors, and to have states honor and respect such treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangement. That is why my show is called Enforcing the Constitution. Now you understand why the name of the prescription of the show is Enforcing the Constitution. The name of the platform is Dr. Matthews-Bey Unfiltered. Oh, and another thing. People ask me, why the Bay? The Bay is now the title to the land. Say this already. Bay, D, and L's on the Americas. Bay, D, and L are the titles to the land. So I don't have to worry. I don't got to walk around with a piece of paper stressing myself out. What are you? I'm a Bay. Oh yeah, now remember, you're people that we don't get into contanglement with. And you know what? In the 1980 Constitution, Forbes Burnham did that. Those who you remember, Forbes Burnham said that you do not come into any contractual arrangement with indigenous people. They're supposed to travel freely on the lands because it belongs to them. Remember in the 1980 Constitution? It said so. To those who are law students and lawyers and who love to look at my show. So we're going to go now to sections 2 of Article 37. It says, nothing in this declaration nothing in this declaration may not be interpreted as diminishing or eliminating the rights of the indigenous people contained in treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements. So it is simple. The Corporation of Guyana owns no land. There's no government reserve. Prescriptive rights of the Constitution under the Lands and Survey Act, which governs the Crown lands, lands that were borrowed by the British from the Aboriginal indigenous people, the Moors, the Bantu Moors. Yes, it was borrowed via way of treaty. That treaty gave you the right. That treaty gave them the right to do commerce on the land and pay royalty annually. So I'm here to collect my due diligence. Sorry, I'm here to collect what is due to me. Sorry, my apologies. So we're going to come out of this and we're going to go into another aspect of the United Nations. Oh, I think I missed it. Let me see. Did I? Yeah, I think I missed it. Hold on. Let me make sure that I didn't. In the meantime, as I was saying, that we need to make sure that we comprehend exactly who are we and what are we? What are we here for? As a matter of fact, what are we doing as to ourselves and our people? Why are people taking advantage on us? Because if we know the truth, then we will say to them that you are an unlawful possessor of my land. I have evidence. So what they do, they make sure that people like the churches, I must gotta mention them, would sit down and tell you about Lord God, son of Telephus, in the churches, and kneel down and pray and hope that you be delivered. And when that has been done, then we got these boys laughing at us, calling us hungry belly dogs. You know? Yeah. One man told me on my thing, I must go get a job. And I explained to him, I said, I don't want a job. He said, why? I said, because job is a Hindu word for oppression. J-O-B? Yes. It's a Hebrew word. It means to be oppressed. That's what job means. You never know. You work so hard and at the end of the week, you still feel oppressed. Because at the end of the week, which I spend all my energies doing, at the end of doing all these energies, I am weak. At the end of my week, I feel oppressed because of the oppression for 6 or 5 days. And when I draw my salary, it doesn't last because the word salary is the ethymon of salary is the comprehension of salt. So, you know, people say it's like when you draw a salary, it's like you draw a salary in front of a fan, it blows away. Yes. The Greek word for salary is salt. A lot of us don't know that. And the earn that we're talking about is the earn to be oppressed. Yes. You earn to the oppression. It means that when you die, your ashes is in your urn. That's all you'll gain. And that's what they teach you in the church. They say, oh, be good, be a good slave. So when you die, you go to heaven. That's what you will earn. Heaven, they promise you that. You can imagine that bull crap. They promise you heaven, but they're not teaching you the right thing. Yeah, I gotta stay on my show. I really gotta stay on my show. Okay. Uh, let me see. 54 4. I'm trying to find. Oh, yes, I did find it. Yeah, I did find it. Let me see. I can forward it. So please excuse me, although I'm getting this thing done. Okay, good. It's here. Let me open it so I can get it, make sure that it has been. And what I'm getting is the UN resolution again, 1514, right? It's the United Nations Revolution 1514 Declaration on Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and People. Good to show you our rights now again. In 1960, the United Nations General Assembly has met and prepared what you call a declaration. These things must happen. As a matter of fact, it didn't happen. It happened on the This happened on the 2nd of December, 1960, right? In the 943rd preliminary, pel, preliminary meeting, and this is the General Assembly. This is what they had passed. This is the declaration. It says, mindful of the determination of proclamation by peoples of the world in the Charter of the United Nations to reaffirm, reading, reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in dignity and worth of the human person, in equal rights of men and women and nations large and small, and to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. This is what it says. Consensus of the need for creation of conditions to stability and well-being and peaceful and friendly relations based on the respect for principles of equal rights and self-determination. Remember, I just mentioned it in the Indigenous Peoples' Rights of the United Nations. It's here now in a document that they have called the Declaration 1514. Right. Respect and equal rights and, and self-determination to all peoples, and of universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. Recognizing again the passionate yearning for freedom in all dependent people, and the divisive role of such people in the attainment of their independence. Aware of the increasing conflict resulting from denial of or impediments in the way of freedom of such people, which continues a serious threat to world peace. Because remember, you're occupying these people land, it continues a threat because people have the right to defend themselves and to attain their ancestral rights. So it affects world peace. So considering the important role of the United Nations as assisting the movement of independence in trust and non-self-governing territory. Here it says, mind you, it says assisting the movement for independence in trust. That means to those trusts who has, you call it, developed estates under trust for persons to come and work, like corporations and non-self-governing territories, which are corporations also too, because they're non-self-governing. Because they don't, I never really wanted them to govern me, right? So they see themselves as non-self-governing. Sorry. Recognizing that peoples of the world ardently desire to end colonialism in all its manifestation. That means we don't want these corporations anymore. We were applying for it since the 1945, after the Second World War. We realized that, hey, look, we want them to do it, yeah, keep your money, your bullets, your planes, kill yourself. Stay away from us. So the United Nations now come together in its establishment and decided to put forward this. So, convinced that the continued existence of colonialism prevents the development of international economic corporations, impedes the social, culture, and economic development of dependent peoples and militaries against the United Nations ideal of universal peace. Affirmity that the peoples may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice of any obligations arising out of an international economic cooperation based upon the principles of mutual benefit and international law. Real tricky, eh? We're coming down to the end of it. Believing that the process of liberation is inspirable and irreversible, and at that, in order to avoid serious crisis, an end must be put to colonialism and all practices of segregation and discrimination associated therewith. Remember, colonialism is what promotes these practices, discrimination and segregation, like what If and Ali running around the place doing, giving attention to those that are called Indo-Guyanese of the corporation and rejecting those that are called Afro-Guyanese. This discrimination because it's a colony. And he wants to move Guyana from a colony of Great Britain. That's why he went the other day to Mexico and talked about reparations from Britain, because he wants to make Guyana now a colony of India. Because India now is promoting the One India policy and program, and he's promoting the One Guyana policy and program. Got to take address of this, believe you me. And it was presented before the Indian National Assembly in 1919. So we mustn't get mixed up. Facts are there. Yes, put an end to colonialism and all practice of segregation and discrimination associated therewith. That means if they put an end to colonialism, that means you have to go back from where you came from. Because that's when you came, you come with that segregation and that discrimination active policies, because the British implemented there in Hindustan, which is now India, and you want to implement it here. It's already here. It's here since 1960 when the British handed over to you, but it's a ticklish thing. We got to sit down and comprehend what's going on. Okay? Welcoming the emergence in recent years of a large number of dependent territories into freedom and independence, and recognizing the increasing powerful trends towards freedom in such territories which have not yet attained independence. If we were an independent nation, then we wouldn't have the name Guyana. We would have gone back to our original name. You know what that original name is? Amexium. We have never gained independence. As a matter of fact, we are not interdependent. They have given independence to a colonial power, which is the British Westminster system, controlled by the Commonwealth and the Organization of American States. So we're still under colonialism. We're still under slavery because we are now being ruled by acts, codes, conducts, and statutes. And when I say we, I don't mean me. I'm talking about those who are looking from the Corporation of Guyana, those who have lineage to the Corporation of Guyana, which is a foreign entity on my land, which people don't know. So I say that to say this. The official records of the General Assemblies, the 15th session supplement number 2, jacket A/4494. I'm saying this because I want people to go do the research, realize what is being told, and don't get confused by stupidity. Okay? Don't let us get mistaken by different things. And I want to read what the committee would have given when this declaration was passed. Convinced that all peoples an inalienable right to complete freedom. Inalienable right to complete freedom. Inalienable means the right to life, liberty, and property. We're all holders of those rights as Moors. The right to life, liberty, and property. And we need to reclaim those rights to those who are Aboriginal, indigenous persons living under the Corporation of Guyana and other elsewhere. Right? Not me, the United Nations. Complete freedom, the exercise of their sovereignty, and integrity of their national territory. Solemnly proclaims the necessity of bringing to a speedy and unconditional end colonialism in all its forms and manifestation. And to this end, declares that, number 1, the subjection of people to alien subjugation, domination, and exploitation constitutes a denial of fundamental human rights, as is contrary to the Charter of the United Nations and is an impediment to promotion of world peace and cooperation. All peoples have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Inadequacy of political, economic, social, or educational preparedness should never serve as a pretext for delaying independence. Remember, hear what it says. Inadequacy of political affiliation, economic, social, or educational preparedness should never deny you independence, because we must have the right to do so ourselves. We must stipulate how we want to educate our children. Edify our children. They say educate, I say edify. Because you educate animals, but you edify living souls. Inadequacy of political, I just read that part. All armed action or repressive measures of all kinds directed against dependent people shall cease in order to enable them to exercise peacefully and freely their right to complete independence and integrity of their national territory shall be respected. That is what the Guyana Police Force violated the people in Mocha, Keenview Avenue. They violated sections 4. Yes. By what? The government violated sections 4 because here what they did, they directed an armed action to repressive measures, removing the people off their ancestral land to gain it. And by gaining it, they say now they have abandoned it via way of an official gazette. And they're calling it government reserve. They have no reserve. I don't know what some of these lawyers are waiting on, but this is a complete violation of the UN Declaration of 1514. Number 5 says, the right to complete independence and the integrity of their national territory shall be respected. Number 5 says, immediate steps shall be taken in trust and in non-self-governing territories. Non-self-governing territories or all other territories which have not yet attained independence to transfer all powers to the people of those territories. Well, then I receive my powers. Not only am I not Guyanese, I'm a Moorish American state citizen, and the powers vested in me. Powers vested in me. And territories, which is the territory in which I am on, that belongs to my ancestors, the Americas. That was loaned in treaty to the British system. As I may go on, transfer of all powers to the people of those territories without any conditions or reservations, in accordance with their freely expressed will and desire, without any distinction as a race, creed, or color, in order to enable them to enjoy complete independence and freedom. Well, here I am telling you about your rights as an indigenous and as an aboriginal person. Any attempt aimed at partial or total disruption of national unity and the territorial integrity of a country to incompatible with the purposes of principles of the Charter of the United Nations. Any attempt aimed at the partial or total disruption of the national unity of the same people in those territories, integrity, we're talking about the integrity of the country, is incompatible with the purpose of principles and the Charter of the United Nations. All states shall observe faithfully and strictly the provisions of the Charters of the United Nations and the Universal Declarations of Human Rights and the present declarations on the basis of equality and non-interference of international affairs of all states, and respect the sovereign rights of all peoples and their territorial integrity. So, Mr. Ali, if you want to respect sovereign rights, The cease and desist that I've given to you is in effect. I want you to observe this and I want you to comprehend it. I will stick no bills. I will play no games with my people. I will defend them legally, territorially, and via way of the treaty. So expect me. Expect you to see me constantly. So I must indicate to you, like I indicated to the UN body day before yesterday. Okay, indicated to the UN body, I want you to comprehend what I'm saying here today. My people have their rights to congregate, to declare their integrity and their independence, interdependence from a controlled state, which you call democracy, or which you call civilized or civilization. You are a foreigner on their land. My Aboriginal, indigenous people, you are an infringement on their land, and you're taking them off of theirs, which you have no right to. So the cease and desist as follows. Take your hands off of what is not yours. Henceforth you will and may be deported to the land in which you came from, which is Hindustan. This is an order, and I want you to comprehend it fully. This is Dr. Matthews-Bey on the Dr. Matthews-Bey Unfiltered. I want to say thank you for your time and patience. Stay safe. Be careful. Sanitize yourself. And don't forget the little ones you take into public places. Good day and Cheerios for now.